My name is Komala, and for as long as I can remember, I believed that hard work could build peace, brick by brick, bloom by bloom. When I was 24, I stood barefoot on a barren patch of land outside the city limits. My friends thought I was crazy. My father called it a useless plot of dirt. But I saw something else. I saw my future. I saw a garden, a home, a life untouched by the chaos of my family's control. I came from a family where love always came with strings. My parents weren't bad people, but they were masters of manipulation. My older sister, Ria, learned that language early, the art of guilt, the power of playing the victim. I was the quiet one. The good daughter, who said yes, who helped. Who never demanded anything. So when I got my first real job as an interior designer, I promised myself something: I will build a home that belongs to me, only me. For the next 9 years, I poured everything I had into that dream. Every design project, every late-night freelance gig, every small raise, it all went into the foundation of that home. It wasn't just a house. It was therapy. When I couldn't sleep, I planted roses. When I was angry, I repainted the walls. When I missed the warmth I never got at home, I filled the space with light, color, and quiet. I built my garden around a small pond with lilies. It became my sanctuary, the one place no one could invade. Or so I thought. One morning, as I was pruning the hydrangeas, my mother called. "Komala, your sister and her husband are moving back to the city," she said. In that tone, sweet but commanding. "That's nice," I replied. "Still trimming, they'll need a place to stay for a few months," she continued. "You have all that space?" I froze. My stomach twisted. "Mom, my house isn't." "Don't be selfish, Komala," she interrupted. "You're alone. They're family." That word again, family. In my family, it was used like a weapon. I hesitated but agreed, thinking it would be temporary. I should have known better. The day Ria and her husband, Samir, arrived, I realized this wasn't a visit, it was an invasion. They came with movers. Movers. Boxes, furniture, even their dog. "We thought it'd be easier to settle in completely," Ria said with that bright, fake smile. "Settle in?" I repeated, "Yeah. Until we find a place. You don't mind, right? Mom said you'd be fine with it." Mom said. Mom said. Mom said. I was too stunned to respond. For the first few days, I tried to stay calm. But slowly, they began redecorating. Ria replaced my minimalist paintings with loud family portraits. Samir moved my reading chair out to the porch. They even rearranged my kitchen, because it wasn't practical. Every corner of my home began to feel unfamiliar. My sanctuary was dissolving. One night, I overheard them in the living room. "This place has potential," Samir said. "A little renovation, maybe build a nursery." We could put the crib near the window," Ria added dreamily. "You think Komala will sell it to us?" "She won't have to," Ria laughed. "Dad already said it's family property. She built it on their land. Technically, it's ours too." My hands went cold. I stood in the hallway, gripping the wall, my breath catching in my throat. Their land? No. I bought this land. I had the receipts, the contracts, the taxes, everything in my name. But the plot had been adjacent to an old section my father once owned before selling parts off. Apparently, he never told them he'd sold this piece to me, and now, my own sister was planning to take everything I had worked for. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the moonlight slipping through the curtains. 9 years of work, savings, and sacrifice, and now my family was plotting to erase me from my own home. But that's the thing about being underestimated, it teaches you how to strike silently. I wasn't going to beg, argue, or cry. I was going to prepare. Over the next few weeks, I played along. I let Ria think I was naive, that I didn't suspect anything. I smiled during family dinners, offered them tea, listened to their future plans. Meanwhile, I started collecting every piece of paper I had ever signed: the property deed, bank transfers, contractor invoices, the original sale documents with my name printed in bold. I scanned and secured them in cloud storage. Then, I met with my lawyer friend, Nisha. "They're trying to claim ownership," I told her. "Komala, if everything's in your name, they don't have a case," she said. "But knowing your sister, you should prepare for emotional manipulation." I nodded. That's what they're best at. Days turned into weeks, and the tension grew. Ria began acting like the lady of the house. She threw a small gathering for her friends, in my home, without even asking. Samir parked his car in my driveway like he owned it. And my parents? They kept calling to remind me to be nice. "You're the younger sister," my father said. "Let them feel comfortable." "Comfortable?" I asked, holding back tears. "Dad, they're moving my furniture. You have to think long term. One day, this will all belong to the family." That word again, family. It echoed in my head like a curse. The breaking point came on a quiet Sunday morning. I came home from a client meeting to find workers in my garden, cutting down the rose bushes I had planted 9 years ago. "What are you doing?" I shouted. One of them looked up. "Ma'am," Ria said, "to clear the space. They're putting in a playground." I felt something inside me snap. Ria walked out of the porch, casually sipping her coffee. "Komala, don't overreact. It's just plants, just plants." Those roses had grown with me, through every heartbreak, every late night, every tear, and she was calling them just plants. That was the day I decided they wouldn't just leave my house. They would never forget what it cost to cross me. After Rhea ordered my garden destroyed, something inside me switched off. The part of me that used to plead, to explain, to wait for understanding, it died that morning with those rose bushes. For the first time in my life, I stopped explaining myself. And started watching instead. Over the next few days, Rhea and Samir acted like nothing had happened. They smiled over breakfast, made small talk. Even invited my parents over for dinner, to celebrate the family being together again. The irony made my skin crawl. My father arrived that evening with a proud smile. "See, Komala? Isn't it nice to have everyone under one roof again?" I clenched my jaw. "Under my roof, Dad." But he didn't hear me. He never did. Mom laughed, complimenting Rhea's choice of curtains, my curtains, now replaced by some hideous floral drapes she bought online. Samir poured wine for everyone, then raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said. Rhea added, "and to family." They all clinked glasses. I didn't. Later that night, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. They were in the dining room, whispering, but not quietly enough. "We can't tell her yet," Samir said. "She'll find out soon anyway," Rhea replied. "The papers are already being processed. She'll explode when she realizes what your dad did." I pressed my back against the hallway wall, heart pounding. Papers? My dad? The next morning, I drove to my father's house. He greeted me like nothing was wrong, as if he hadn't just betrayed me. "What are you doing with my property documents?" I asked bluntly. "Oh, that," he said, waving his hand like it was a minor thing. "Your mother and I decided to transfer the land into the family trust. That way, everyone benefits." "Everyone? Or just Rhea and Samir?" I asked. He frowned. "Don't speak like that. You've had your time in that house. Now you can move to the city, closer to us. It's for your own good." I wanted to laugh. My own good? I built that home brick by brick, working overtime, skipping vacations, saving every penny, and now my father was handing it to my sister, for my own good? I took a deep breath, holding back tears. "Dad, that house isn't on family land anymore. You sold that plot 9 years ago, to me." "You mean the papers you made me sign without telling me what they were for?" He said sharply. The air left my lungs. He remembered. "You said it was just for the garden fence," he continued. "You tricked me, Komala. That was dishonest." I stared at him in disbelief. He was rewriting history right in front of me. "I paid for that land. I transferred the money directly to your account." "That was a gift from a daughter," he snapped. "Not a purchase." I realized then that logic meant nothing here. This wasn't about land or money. It was about control, and I was done playing their game. That evening, I called Nisha again. "They're creating fake paperwork," I told her. "You need to act fast," she said. "Get certified copies of your original deed. And Komala? Start documenting everything. Every word, every message." So I did. Every text Rhea sent. Every voicemail from Mom, every receipt, every screenshot, every interaction. And I started recording conversations. Discreetly. Meanwhile, Rhea began escalating her power play. She took over my study room, claiming she needed an office. She locked it when she left, as if I were the intruder. Samir started bringing his colleagues over for meetings, casually referring to the house as our place. The audacity was breathtaking. She lost everything, except herself. If you believe strength starts with self-respect, subscribe and join our growing family of survivors. Watch till end. That evening, after the movers left, I stood in my nearly empty living room. The echoes of my own footsteps felt like ghosts whispering through the hollow space. Everything I had built with love, my art, my books, my furniture, now packed away by people who had no right to touch any of it. For a second, I wanted to cry. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up my phone and called Nisha. "It's time," I said. She didn't need me to explain. For weeks, she had been preparing the legal documents, quietly, methodically, just like me. We met the next morning at her office. She laid out the stack of files on her desk, her expression calm but fierce. "Komala, everything is in your name, the land deed, construction permits, tax receipts, and the architectural approvals. They have no legal claim. We'll file for a property injunction immediately." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Good. But I don't want them arrested, not yet. I want them to understand first. Nisha smiled knowingly. "Then let's make them sweat." Back at the house, Rhea and Samir had gotten comfortable. Too comfortable. They were hosting dinners, inviting neighbors, introducing themselves as the new owner. Every time I passed by, they'd give me pitying looks, like I was some unwanted guest in their family home. But I played along. I cooked with them, joined their small talks, even smiled when they called my house our place. Because every fake smile I gave them was another nail in their own coffin. Meanwhile, Nisha had arranged for a process server to deliver the official notice of injunction. I'll never forget that day. It was a bright Tuesday morning. Rhea was sitting on the porch, flipping through a lifestyle magazine. Samir was talking on the phone, loudly, as usual. The white car pulled into the driveway. A man in a black suit stepped out with a folder in his hand. "Mrs. Rhea Sharma?" he asked politely. "Yes, that's me," she said with her usual fake grace. "You've been served." He handed her the envelope, nodded, and walked back to his car. Rhea stared at it, confused. "Samir?" she called out. What is this? He grabbed the papers, flipped through, and his expression changed instantly. Injunction? Property seizure prevention? What the hell? I stepped out from the kitchen doorway, calm as ever. Oh, you got it, I said sweetly. Good. Saves me the trip. Her face drained of color. You did this? She hissed. No, I said. The law did this. I just helped it notice you. That afternoon, my parents arrived in a storm of anger. How could you take legal action against your own sister? My mother shouted. Because she's living in my house, I said firmly. And destroying what I built. You're tearing this family apart. No, Mom. You did that when you taught us that guilt equals love. My father pointed at me, shaking with rage. You'll regret this, Komala. Family doesn't forget betrayal. I stared back at him. Neither does justice. Then I turned, walked into my house, and locked the door behind them. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. The next few days were chaos. Ria screamed at everyone, neighbors, lawyers, even my parents. Samir called me names behind my back but avoided me in person. They hired a lawyer too, some cousin's friend who thought intimidation could undo paperwork. He sent Nisha an email claiming family ownership rights under emotional obligation. She laughed so hard she almost cried. Emotional obligation is not a property law term, she told me. But we'll let them embarrass themselves in court. I nodded, let them dig deeper. Still, the emotional side of it wasn't easy. At night, I'd sit by the broken garden and stare at the patches of soil where my roses once bloomed. I could still hear my mother's voice, you're alone. You don't need all that space. She was right. I didn't need the space. I needed peace. But I was beginning to realize, peace doesn't come from giving in. It comes from standing up, even if you stand alone. 2 weeks later, the court issued an interim order. Ria and Samir were legally prohibited from altering the property, making renovations, or claiming ownership until the hearing. In simple terms, they were frozen, but instead of backing off, they doubled down. They stopped talking to me completely, which was fine by me, and began acting like martyrs. Ria posted on social media, some people would rather destroy family than share happiness. Samir commented, we worked hard too. But greed changes people. I didn't respond. Because their own words were doing all the damage I needed. The tension hit a boiling point one evening when Ria barged into my room without knocking. Are you happy now? She screamed, ecstatic. I said calmly. You've ruined our lives. I defended mine. She slammed her fist on the table. You think you're so smart, hiding behind lawyers? Dad's going to fix this. I met her eyes, unflinching. He already tried. And the law just reminded him he doesn't own me. She froze. That one line, that simple truth, finally cracked the arrogance in her expression. But instead of leaving, she whispered something venomous. You'll end up alone, Komala. And no one will care. I smiled softly. Maybe. But at least I'll be alone in a house that's mine. A few days later, the hearing date arrived. We walked into the courtroom, me, Nisha, and a thick folder of documents. On the other side, Ria, Samir, and my parents, looking smug and confident. The judge began by asking for proof of ownership. Nisha presented every file, neatly labeled, notarized, and dated. Ria's lawyer tried to object, claiming family trust, but had zero evidence. Then the judge asked the golden question, who paid for the land? Nisha slid the bank transfer receipt forward. Komala Sharma. Personal account to her father's, 9 years ago. Full payment with acknowledgement of sale. The courtroom went silent. My father looked pale. Ria avoided eye contact. Case adjourned for verification, the judge said. But on initial review, ownership appears clear. We walked out. For the first time in years, the air felt lighter, but I wasn't done yet. Winning legally was one thing, but I wanted understanding. I wanted them to feel the pain they'd tried to give me. That night, I began phase 2 of my revenge, emotional exposure. I didn't shout. I didn't post. I simply gathered the recordings, the ones where my sister mocked me, where my parents plotted behind my back. Where they spoke of taking over, and sent them to my extended family WhatsApp group. The silence that followed was thunderous. Cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends. Everyone heard the truth. By midnight, Ria was bombarded with calls. Samir deleted his social media. My parents stopped picking up my calls. And I? The morning after I sent those recordings to the family group, my phone didn't stop buzzing, dozens of messages. Missed calls. Some were from cousins who had ignored me for years, now suddenly apologizing. Some were from family friends, polite, shocked, but secretly thrilled by the gossip. One message stood out, from my Aunt Mira, my mother's younger sister. Komala, I always knew something was off. You didn't deserve what they did. I'm proud of you. For the first time in a long time. I felt seen, but the same couldn't be said for Ria and Samir. Their social lives, the fancy brunches, the family gatherings, the curated, perfect life online, collapsed overnight. No one wanted to be associated with the couple who tried to steal their sister's house. When my parents found out about the leak, they were furious. My mother called me, her voice shaking with rage. You humiliated us, Komala. Do you know what people are saying? Yes, I said calmly. They're saying the truth. You've ruined this family's reputation. No, Mom. I just stopped protecting your lies. There was silence on the line, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost control. You're no daughter of mine, she spat before hanging up. For a moment, her words hurt. But then I looked around, at my walls, my furniture, my garden slowly healing, and I remembered, I didn't build this life to please anyone. I built it to survive, and now, I was finally living in it, free. But Rhea wasn't done. She wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. 2 days later, I saw her car pull up in the driveway. She stepped out wearing sunglasses, holding a folder, her posture tight with anger but coated in fake calm. We need to talk, she said. You've said enough, I replied. Komala, listen, she insisted, her tone suddenly soft. We can fix this. You can still move out peacefully. I cut her off. You still think I'm negotiating with you? Her lips tightened. Fine, she said. Then I hope you're ready for court. I smiled slightly. Already was. That evening, Samir tried a different tactic, intimidation. He called me, pretending to sound reasonable. Look, Komala, this whole legal mess is unnecessary. You're not thinking long term. When your parents are gone, the property will be ours anyway. You can't fight blood. I took a deep breath, steadying my tone. Blood doesn't give you entitlement, Samir. It gives you responsibility, something you clearly never learned. Then I hung up, and for the first time in years, I realized, I didn't owe anyone my silence anymore. The final court hearing came 3 weeks later. By then, the story had spread, quietly, through whispers, through relatives, through people who loved drama more than truth. I walked into that courtroom not as a victim, but as a woman reclaiming her name. Nisha was by my side, calm and collected. Rhea and Samir looked exhausted, their arrogance cracked, their confidence replaced by panic. The judge reviewed the verified documents, then raised his head. Ownership of the property is confirmed under the name of Ms. Komala Sharma, he declared. All opposing claims are hereby dismissed as fraudulent and without merit. The gavel hit the desk. It was over, the sound echoed through the room like a final heartbeat of justice. I looked at Rhea. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. For once, she had nothing to say, but the real collapse came afterward. My father stormed out of the courtroom before the decision was even read. My mother followed him, muttering something about ungrateful daughters. Samir tried to save face by saying, this isn't over. Nisha turned to him and smiled coldly. Actually, it is. They left, defeated, but I didn't feel joy. Not yet. Revenge doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like exhaling after holding your breath for years. That night, I walked through my house, touching each wall like greeting an old friend. The air felt different, lighter, freer, as if the house itself had been waiting for me to reclaim it. I stepped into the garden. The workers had long gone, and the once destroyed flower beds were now blooming again. Thanks to a gardener I'd quietly hired weeks ago. I knelt by the roses, new ones, crimson and full, and whispered, we're home again. But even in that peace, a small ache lingered. Family wasn't supposed to be the enemy, parents weren't supposed to choose control over love. And sisters weren't supposed to destroy what they didn't build yet. That was my reality. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from any of them, until one evening. There was a knock at my door. It was my father. Alone. He looked older, tired. Like the fight had drained something deep from him. May I come in? He asked quietly. I hesitated, then nodded. He stepped inside, eyes wandering across the house as if seeing it for the first time. You did well, he said finally. It's beautiful. It always was, I replied. You just never looked. He sighed, sitting on the edge of the couch. Your mother won't forgive you. I didn't do it for forgiveness. Ria's moved away. She blames me now. Good. Maybe she'll finally learn what consequences feel like. He looked at me for a long time, then said something I didn't expect. I was wrong, Komala. My throat tightened. I thought control was protection. I thought guiding you meant owning you. But you proved me wrong. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. You didn't need to control me, Dad. You just needed to believe in me. He nodded slowly, got up, and said, take care of yourself. Then he left. No apologies from my mother. No reconciliation from Rhea. Just quiet acknowledgement, and maybe, that was enough. Weeks later, as I sat in my garden watching the sun dip behind the walls, I realized something profound. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't payback. It's peace, because peace is something you can't steal, forge, or fake. You can only earn it, one decision, one boundary, one act of self-respect at a time. But life had one more twist waiting for me, something unexpected. Something that reminded me that even after destruction, life can bloom again. Months passed. The chaos faded, the gossip died, and people moved on to the next scandal. But for me, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred. Each morning, I woke up to the sound of birds instead of arguments. Coffee tasted better when it wasn't brewed with bitterness. And every time I watered the garden, I reminded myself, this was mine. Every petal, every inch of soil, every drop of sweat that built it. Freedom didn't look glamorous. It looked like peace that didn't ask for permission. One Sunday morning, I hosted a small brunch for friends, Nisha, Aunt Mira, and a few neighbors who had supported me quietly through it all. They brought laughter, music, and life back into the walls that once heard only tension. Nisha walked through the garden, smiling. You know, Komala, she said, sipping her tea, I think this place was always meant for you. It just had to fight a little harder to stay yours. I smiled. Maybe that's true for all of us, I replied. Sometimes, the things meant for us demand that we prove we're ready to keep them. The others nodded, because they understood. We've all had something stolen from us at some point: peace, dignity, love. But reclaiming it? That's the real victory. Later that evening, after everyone left, I sat alone in the garden. The roses had grown thick, wild, unapologetic. A few fireflies danced between the leaves. And in the center of it all stood the oak bench my father had helped me build 9 years ago. Before everything changed, I ran my hand over the wood, tracing its worn surface, and thought about the past. I didn't hate my family anymore. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved freedom. Hate chains you to the people who hurt you. Forgiveness lets you walk away without dragging their ghosts behind you. Weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. No name, just a familiar handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a short note from my sister, Ria. Komala, I don't expect you to forgive me. I thought taking what you built would make me feel powerful. Instead, it made me realize how small I've been. I'm sorry. Ria. I sat there for a long time, staring at the note. No tears, no anger, just quiet understanding. I didn't reply. Some apologies are enough just by existing. A few months later, my father passed away unexpectedly. When I attended the funeral, my mother didn't look at me, not once. But as the rituals ended, she approached, eyes red, voice trembling. He wanted you to know? He was proud of you. I nodded, unable to speak. Because despite everything, I had wanted to hear those words my entire life. When I returned home that evening, I placed a single white flower from the ceremony on my garden bench. Then I whispered to the air, "Rest easy, Dad. I'm finally okay." Time moved gently after that. The house became not just a home but a sanctuary, a living reflection of who I'd become. I started a small online business teaching others about home design and emotional boundaries, how to build not just walls, but peace within them. To my surprise, it took off. Thousands of women wrote to me about their own battles, with family, guilt, and the invisible chains that bind them. Each message reminded me that my story wasn't just pain, it was purpose. One day, while filming a short tutorial in my garden, I noticed something unusual. Near the bench, a new flower had sprouted, one I hadn't planted. A delicate bloom, soft pink with white edges. Probably carried by the wind, finding a home where it could grow. I smiled. Because that's exactly what I had done. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky gold and lavender, I whispered to myself, I built this home with love, and they tried to take it. But what they couldn't take was me. I leaned back on the bench, eyes closed, feeling the wind on my face. The garden rustled softly, as if the earth itself was breathing with me, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for peace to come. I was living in it. If I could tell anyone listening one thing, it would be this: you can spend years building something, a home, a dream, a version of yourself, and people might try to claim it, twist it, or destroy it. But they can only take what you let them. The real foundation of anything worth keeping isn't made of bricks or walls. It's made of boundaries, courage, and the quiet refusal to be erased. So build. Protect what's yours. And when the world tries to take it, bloom anyway.